Good evening. My name is Stephen Helfer. This is the smoking section. And tonight we are very happy to run a Skype interview with my co-host Emily Weja is going to interview a gentleman by the name of Christoph Lovenisch, who is in a smokers' rights group in Germany. So without further ado, I'm going to start the interview right now. I'm very interested in seeing it myself.
Hey, Christoph. So thank you for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
So you're associated with a German organization called, I'm going to try to pronounce it, you have to bear with me, Netzwerk Rauchen, is that correct?
Netzwerk Rauchen, exactly.
Yeah, and that translates, I believe, into Network for Smoking.
Yeah, exactly. A network for smoking, about smoking. It was founded in 2006. The earliest attempts of smokers to convene independently to protest against anti-smoking measures were in 2004, and the website was set up in 2005, and the association was founded in 2006 as originally as a chapter of Forces. So the subtitle,
okay. Yeah.
the subtitle Forces Germany, which changed a couple of years later for reasons that don't have to do with forces or anything, with some legal reasons. And since 2009, it's been called Netzwerk Rauchen. It's a non-profit organization.
Okay. So you are a legally incorporated group, I noticed on your website.
Yeah, so it's an officially registered non-profit association. Yeah.
Okay. And is your group, I know you're a non-profit, but are you supported or funded by any other group or organization or industry, or is it purely funded by donations?
It's purely funded by membership fees and donations, or almost purely, I can say. I mean, there are, or you can, as a non-profit organization, also in Germany also sell stuff to some extent, like publications, and that's also a small part of the income of the association.
Yeah, so fundraisers, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, different means of fundraising. We opened an online shop last year where you get it's basically a donation shop. So people who donate like 5 or 10 euros or more get a gift in return, and they can choose which gift they want.
Oh, that's great. And is it open to membership internationally, or is it only German?
With the online shop, it's a bit difficult with shipping stuff abroad, but certainly people can contact us and we can figure things out. Membership as such is internationally open, so everybody could become a member for an annual fee of 24 euros.
Okay, great. So, and how many members do you currently have? Do you have figures on that?
We have I mean, it's changing and shifting a little bit, but it's like 100. Like 100, because I mean today, the age of social media, lots of people are like on the Netzwerk Rauchen Facebook, in the Netzwerk Rauchen Facebook group or something, and they consider that being enough. So there are lots of other people that are like very much individuals, and very much hesitate to join any sort of association, but still support our cause. Lots of supporters in addition to the members.
Right.
Yeah.
But to back up a little bit, I want to talk about the situation in Germany vis-a-vis smoking bans. I know, which is the reason really for Netzwerk Rauchen's existence. So what is the current situation for indoor smoking bans in Germany? Does it vary state by state, such as in the U.S.?
It does. I mean, there's also a federal smoking ban act, which took effect 10 years ago, that covers means of transport and basically the federal government buildings. That's it's actually not a total ban. So there can be smokers' rooms in government buildings, like in the German Parliament, where there are smokers' rooms. There can be smokers' rooms or smokers' units in means of transport. Of course, okay, it's difficult in the taxi to have two different units, but in a train, it would be possible, at least legally, to have a smoker's coach compartment. There aren't any today, but theoretically it's possible. And all the rest, well, is covered by legislation of the states. They all enacted these laws like 10 years ago at the same time, and originally wanted to have similar laws, but at least in detail there are huge differences by state, and that covers not just bars and restaurants, but also schools and state and local government buildings, and sometimes airports or shopping centers, shopping malls, and a couple of organizations and places. As for the hospitality sector, the general picture is that there are 3 states that have a total ban, or a near total ban, while 13 other states have a partial ban that allows smokers' rooms in restaurants under certain provisions, and also enables small bar owners to decide for themselves what they want, whether they want to allow smoking or not.
It's very interesting. I think one question that I would have is, because personally when I first started noticing a lot of anti-smoking sentiment, to me it really followed from this kind of legislation. So in other words, I started noticing that people in general and the public were becoming very anti-smoking after indoor smoking bans had been enacted. So do you notice in a country like Germany, where there's a lot of differences in the different states in the smoking legislation, do you notice that public attitudes of smoking follow from that?
I think it's been influenced by many factors. Anti-smoking measures include tax hikes, of course, and have warnings on packs, including the no pictorial warnings, and generally anti-smoking propaganda, which has been going on for decades, but of course accelerated a lot since or let's say after 2000. So the change in attitudes has been a long time process. So there was a change in attitudes even before, or even if you compare 2005 or 2006, right before they started to making these laws, that attitude was different than 10 or even 5 years before.
Yeah, that's very true. It's been a very quick process, I think, also in the U.S. And it depends very much on where you live, exactly what attitudes you'll notice. But what was your personal experience as a smoker, and why did you get involved with Netzwerk Rauchen?
There was at a time when I'd been noticing more and more anti-smoking measures being implemented. I started smoking in 1994, and I don't know, maybe the first time I noticed a new ban being introduced by a bus company or coach company. It was for travel. Was introduced in 2000, so it was a change from 99 to 2000. It was one of the first things I noticed. Then then a cascade of tax hikes, 2001, 2002, 2003, there was noticeable, and the more discussions about bans that started in 2004, 2005. So that's when I noticed there's really or the anti-smokers are prohibitionist wave is on a roll, and I need to react to that, and so I started looking for more information and also for groups, organizations, and people that were already protesting against that.
And do you feel that you experience prejudice in your daily life because you're a smoker?
Prejudice, not so much. I mean, like even people are much more anti-smoking than they were like 15 years ago. I mean, accept smokers as a reality, even if they support anti-smoking measures. They don't. I mean, you get more like comments by other people than you did like 20 years ago, but not that much more. Until, well, in my professional environment, I only remember like that one person who once commented on my smell or so after I had a smoke. That's the exception.
That's the exception. So in Germany, is there any regulation about the hiring of smokers? That is it against the law to discriminate in hiring a smoker?
Not really. I mean, not many cases known. I mean, there are more and more companies, because it's fashionable, that maybe offer, especially larger companies that offer like quit smoking seminars or something to their employees. But it's hiring smokers is not really, not hiring them is not really an issue. I mean, smokers as such aren't, or non-smokers for that matter, aren't really protected. As opposed to other groups, depending like on nationality or religion or something, but that's not really become an issue.
That's good.
Another topic, of course, is smoking at your workplace. Interestingly, there's no like comprehensive law that would outlaw smoking at German workplaces. I mean, it's obviously where it's covered by state and federal laws. Yeah, so of course somebody working at the federal ministry will only be able to smoke in a smoker's room in their ministry if they have one. Or of course, if you work in a bar in a state where there's a total ban on smoking, you won't be able to smoke there. But for the rest, there's just legal regulations that non-smokers have to be protected somehow, but it's still possible for someone who has a building company or so to to smoke in their office if they want to.
Right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about what you mentioned earlier, the kind of creep of prohibition that I think we're seeing everywhere worldwide. It's on different phases in different places, but in the U.S. right now, I think at least what we're seeing in big cities like Boston, is that now it's extending to outdoor bans in parks, but also in bans in apartment buildings, in people's houses, in condos. And I noticed on your website that you have a program called A Roof for Smokers. Is that correct?
Exactly. I mean, there's not such a strong tendency when it comes to people's individual homes. I mean, you can see people themselves being like brainwashed to some extent, and I only smoke on the balcony or in my garden or like in front of the door. I've seen this development come like really step by step over the years. With people when like 15 years ago you could smoke everywhere in their apartment, and it was just one room, and then only at parties, and then only the staircase, and then only whatever on the balcony. Remember once, like what was it, 5 years ago, an absurd situation at a small party with 7 people, 6 of which were smokers, and then everybody of course went out on the balcony because like the 7th person didn't want to remain on her own. So that was a little bit absurd, and I noticed how that basically ruined the atmosphere at parties, a little bit like in a bar. when the situation wasn't relaxed anymore and the discussions got more tense, and it just wasn't as I was used to it. So it was not a party I liked, so I avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah. I've seen the same thing here, definitely, and I think so. A lot of smokers do now choose, supposedly of their own volition, to smoke outside. But I think obviously a lot of it has to do with that steady brainwashing and that steady acclimation toward being in non-smoking environments. But I think it is becoming a bigger problem in the U.S. That people are just not able to smoke in their apartments anymore. And there have been cases here also of elderly people, people in wheelchairs, being evicted from their apartments because of smoking. So it seems that Netzwerk Rauchen does some work with supporting people who are evicted in Germany. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. I mean, it's almost impossible as of now to basically kind of ban people from smoking in the apartments or houses they rented, because smoking is still considered a normal use of this hired ground, or as it's called in legal terms.
Yeah.
Where there are, sometimes there are problems, and that's usually lawsuits by neighbors, not by landlords, by neighbors who complain about smoke if people smoke on their balconies, which actually became more of an issue. Less people smoke within their apartments, and if they go on the balcony every time,
that's very interesting.
Someone else
that is interesting.
might smell that, and sometimes there are complaints. There are complaints about other smells and noises and stuff. People are getting more intolerant. That's obvious.
Definitely.
Church bells can be an issue, or people who move in a building above a bakery and then complain about smell from the bakery baking bread and stuff. So that's a general tendency. And also it's also about smoking, and it's with the general anti-smoking trend, smoking can also be used as a facade or as a tool if you don't like your neighbors.
Right, that's true. That's true.
And then you complain about that. We were involved in two interesting legal cases. In one case it was actually the landlord who obviously wanted to evict that old guy because he could then rent it to a company and make more money of it than just renting it for a person to live there. Mm-hmm. And their excuse was whatever, the smoke came through the door of his apartment into the staircase or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there was an interesting case. It went up to the highest federal court of civil justice, and it overruled a judgment by a lower court and stuff like that, because what becomes obvious is that it kind of really depends on the judges and the judges' individual preferences. It's sometimes, if the judge is an anti-smoker, they tend to rule against smokers. And in this case, in that case of that old guy, I think he's 79 now, it was a bit obvious that the lower courts had overlooked certain elements relevant to the case, and so in the end he could stay there. They couldn't throw him out, so there was a success. There's another case that's a little bit less successful at the moment, with people living in their own house and also smoking in the garden and in their kitchen and the window open, and they get complaints by neighbors, which are probably or originally haven't been smoking related. It's just a little bit of a bullying situation.
Right, a facade or an excuse.
Yeah, it's an excuse, and it's a bullying situation because in an accident they got they have a little disability they got from an accident, and live off basically disability pensions, and there's some what would I say, there's some envy from the neighbors, because they say they don't have to work all day, but they still have their house and their cars, their car, and that escalated into a bullying situation. We're saying that neighbors like smoking like all day and all night, and our bedrooms are full of smoke and stuff like that. In the first court level, the judge came there and basically started to smell. I had some assistants with her who were basically smoking in the garden, and she couldn't really smell anything on the neighbors' premises.
Okay.
But on the next level, you had an anti-smoking judge, an obviously anti-smoking judge, or at least someone, maybe not in a political sense, but someone who personally despises the smell of smoke. And he said, well, lots of witnesses, which were all family and friends of these neighbors, and if they say there's an annoying smell, then they're probably right. And now they have a timetable. I mean, they're still legal action against it, but they have a timetable when they are allowed to smoke in their garden, and when they can still smoke in their kitchen and within their house, but in their garden 3 hours, and then a 3 hours break, and you can smoke.
Wow.
Yeah, like between 3 and 6, but not between 6 and 9 or something like that. It's
so
it's absurd. Yeah. Exactly. So there are a couple of cases, but it's just a few.
Right.
I mean, all of them do inspire other people or other neighbors, landlords, whatever, to start doing.
Unfortunately, it sets a precedent. Unfortunately. So what are some other activities of Netzwerk Rauchen that you think are the most important that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, we currently reacted to this EU new tobacco products directive that went into effect in Germany last year with these pictorial warnings, the horror pics and
the so-called plain packaging.
It's not really plain packaging, because you still have some logos and color on it, but you have much bigger warning labels on it than before, and not including these pictures, at least on cigarettes and cigarette tobacco, cigars and pipe tobacco. On the other hand, they're exempt. I mean, I think they also have bigger warning labels, but at least they don't have pictures on them. And we made some sort of a scrapbook where you can put. You can basically cut out the pictures and the warning labels and put them there, and there's a comment by us, and there's quotations from books, or from Mark Twain or whatever. So that's comments from us on the anti-smoking messages.
That's great.
That means what about the picture? How silly is it possibly, and how much truth is in that particular claim about certain health risks and stuff like that. Plus, we offer stickers that people can put on their. There are even more than just these two. That people can put on their packs, or
to kind of cover up
the pictures at least.
That's great.
So actually, we even have that in a bigger version as a sort of a banderole.